A show of force? U.S. sends thousands of troops to the Middle East. Written by Thomas L. Friedman. The Pentagon is sending thousands of additional troops to the Middle East. This is a significant move. It comes amidst a growing conflict between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Israel has launched a ground invasion of Lebanon. This follows weeks of cross-border raids and the assassination of Hezbollah's leader. The U.S. deployment includes warships, fighter jets, and thousands of Marines. This is a clear signal of support for Israel. It is also a message to Iran, Hezbollah's main backer. The U.S. already has a large military presence in the region. This deployment will bring the total number of troops to over 40,000. This is the largest U.S. military buildup in the Middle East in years. The Biden administration says the deployment is defensive. They say it is necessary to deter Iran and its allies from attacking U.S. interests. However, some analysts worry that the move could backfire. They fear it could escalate tensions and lead to a wider war. The deployment is a sign of the growing U.S. concern about Iran's activities in the region. Iran has been supplying Hezbollah with increasingly sophisticated weapons. They have also been supporting other militant groups in Iraq and Syria. The U.S. fears that Iran is trying to establish a Shia crescent of influence stretching from Tehran to Beirut. This would give Iran a major strategic advantage in the Middle East. The Pentagon's rationale for deployment. The timing of the U.S. deployment is no coincidence. It comes at a time of heightened tensions in the region. The conflict between Israel and Hezbollah is the most serious in years. There is a real risk that it could escalate into a wider war. The U.S. is also concerned about Iran's growing influence. Tehran's support for Hezbollah and other militant groups is seen as a direct threat to U.S. interests. The Pentagon argues that the deployment is necessary to deter Iran and its allies. They believe that a show of force is the best way to prevent an attack on U.S. interests. The deployment is also intended to reassure Israel of U.S. support. Israel is a key U.S. ally in the region. The U.S. is committed to defending Israel's security. However, some analysts argue that the deployment is a mistake. They say that it will only escalate tensions and make a diplomatic solution less likely. They also argue that the U.S. is overreacting to Iran's activities. They say that Iran is not an existential threat to the U.S. or its allies. Walking a tightrope balancing deterrence and diplomacy. The U.S. is facing a difficult balancing act in the Middle East. On the one hand, it wants to deter Iran and its allies from attacking U.S. interests. On the other hand, it does not want to escalate the situation and make a wider war more likely. The deployment of additional troops is a risky move. It could easily backfire and lead to the very outcome the U.S. is trying to avoid. The Biden administration insists that the deployment is purely defensive. They say that the U.S. is not seeking a war with Iran. However, the administration has also said that all options are on the table if Iran or its allies attack U.S. interests. This suggests that the U.S. is prepared to use military force if necessary. The U.S. is also pursuing diplomacy in an effort to de-escalate the situation. The Biden administration has been in contact with European allies and with Russia and China. They are trying to build international support for a diplomatic solution. However, the prospects for diplomacy look slim at the moment. There is a deep mistrust between the U.S. and Iran. Neither side seems willing to back down. Section 4. Ripples in the region, wider implications of the deployment. The United States deployment of troops to the Middle East has wider implications for the region. It is a sign of the growing U.S. concern about Iran's activities. It is also a sign of the U.S. commitment to Israel's security. The deployment is likely to have a significant impact on the regional balance of power. The deployment is likely to increase tensions between the U.S. and Iran. It could also lead to a proxy war between the two countries, with each side supporting its allies in the region. The deployment is also likely to increase tensions between Israel and its neighbors. Some Arab countries are concerned about Israel's growing military power. They are also concerned about the possibility of an Israeli attack on Iran. The deployment is a reminder of the volatile situation in the Middle East. The region is home to a number of long-standing conflicts. There is a constant risk of these conflicts escalating into wider wars. The U.S. deployment is likely to further destabilize the region. This could have a significant impact on global energy markets. It could also lead to a new wave of refugees fleeing the region. Section 5. Can diplomacy prevail? The uncertain path to peace. The U.S. deployment of troops to the Middle East makes a diplomatic solution to the current crisis less likely. However, diplomacy is still the best hope for avoiding a wider war. The Biden administration needs to find a way to engage with Iran. They need to address Iran's legitimate security concerns. The U.S. also needs to work with its allies to revive the Iran nuclear deal. The deal was designed to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons. It also provided Iran with much-needed economic relief. The Trump administration withdrew from the deal in 2018. This was a major mistake. It has allowed Iran to resume its nuclear program. It has also increased tensions between the U.S. and Iran. The Biden administration has said that it is willing to rejoin the nuclear deal if Iran returns to compliance. However, Iran has said that it will only return to compliance if the U.S. lifts sanctions first. This is a major sticking point. It is unclear how the two sides will overcome this obstacle. The path to peace in the Middle East is uncertain. However, diplomacy is still the best hope for avoiding a wider war. The Biden administration needs to show leadership. They need to work with its allies to find a peaceful solution to the current crisis.